What's up everybody, this is Master Ian Gamer. We just got a brand new Overwatch director's take, this time outlining upcoming hero balance changes for Overwatch 2 Season 6. These include further buffs for Lifeweaver, some various tweaks and changes for heroes like Kiriko, Cassidy, and Torbjorn, and of course, a nerf for Mercy. Alright, jumping right on in, before we get onto the actual balance changes, there were a couple quick notes regarding general balance for the game itself. There was a lesson in the Lifeweaver release where our newest hero was interesting, but just wasn't strong enough on release, and we don't want to repeat that. For Overwatch 2 Invasion, our aim is to have our newest hero be exciting and impactful on day one. It's not our intent to release a hero that's way overpowered, but we'd prefer that people play her because she brings value, not just because she's new. We will be watching her very closely, listening to player feedback, and will make early changes if necessary. Well, there you go. They don't tease too much more about the upcoming new support hero, other than that, she might be broken on release, perhaps akin to what we saw with heroes like Ramatra. I don't know, we'll have to see once the season actually launches just how powerful she ends up being, but I do think it's sort of funny that Blizzard seems to be outright stating, yes, the hero is going to be strong, deal with it. Also, we're making a change to the way we calculate damage against armor. Armor damage reduction is now additive with other sources of damage reduction and respects the current cap of 50%. It used to be multiplicative with damage reduction from abilities, creating situations where certain heroes were much more difficult to damage than intended since they were bypassing the damage reduction cap. This shouldn't be a big change and will mostly affect Ramatra and Orisa. So specifically what this is addressing is situations where Ramatra uses his block ability while in Nemesis form or Orisa uses Fortify, where they get a damage reduction on top of the fact that they have armor health. Evidently, that was resulting in them reducing damage more than Blizzard had really intended in this scenario, so I am curious to see how this change actually ends up impacting them, since both heroes tend to be fairly strong in their ability to just tank damage. And I'm curious if we're gonna have to see some counter buffs in order to help balance things out after this change goes through. But moving on to specific changes for heroes coming up in Season 6, one of the themes for balance changes this season is reacting to some of our recent tuning tweaks. We made several changes to Cassidy's magnetic grenade this season, and going forward, we'll be refining it to address some of the extremes of the ability. Its maximum range will shorten quite a bit with a 1.5 second max travel time. Cassidy will also get a health buff and some changes to his damage fall off. Yes, that's right everybody, Fat Cassidy is back. They're presumably going to be buffing him to, I'm guessing 225? I can't really imagine they'd go much higher beyond that, but yeah, for those of you who like the extra health on Cass, it's coming back. We're happy with the power of Torbjorn's turrets following this season's change, but we'd like to increase the damage potential of his primary fire, which will be getting a faster fire rate. We're also speeding up his weapon swap so that he's more effective at keeping his turret up. Soldier 76 got quite a buff in Season 5. We don't think he's oppressive, but there's room to lower his damage output. We'll be reducing the damage on his Helix rocket and slightly increasing the cost of his ult. Lastly, we're continuing to make changes to Orisa. Her Fortify ability will now grant 125 bonus health, and the start of her damage fall off will be slightly extended. We wanted to see how much the mid-season changes would bring her up before the armor damage reduction hit, and think she needs a bit more to compensate. So there you go, a bit of a compensation there for the armor changes. I am curious to see though still if Ramatra ends up getting something along those lines as well, since he's not really mentioned beyond the armor changes in this blog post. While we're releasing a new support in Invasion, we're also making quite a few changes to our current support heroes. We're continuing to focus on Lifeweaver. We think he's in a much better state now than at his launch, but would like to focus on two aspects of his kit, giving his ult more impact and giving Lifeweaver himself more survivability. Part of Tree of Life's healing will now be converted into overhealth up to a maximum of 100 health per person. He will also get added survivability by converting some of his health to shields and upping the amount of healing done by rejuvenating dash. So these are some rather intriguing buffs right here. I'm glad that Tree of Life is getting a bit of a buff, since it's always felt like a fairly underwhelming ultimate, especially considering how visually impressive of an ultimate it is. So hearing that it'll now overheal players a little bit is a cool mechanic to add, and I'm definitely interested in seeing how that ends up balancing him overall. The other survivability with the shields and whatnot I think is probably a decent direction given just how big of a hitbox he has in general. overall, I really don't think he's actually been in that bad of a situation recently, especially if you're someone who spends a lot of time playing him and really knows how to work with his kit. But again, I'm curious to see how these buffs end up impacting him. We're also making some changes to Kiriko's Protection Suzu. It will now heal slightly less, but when it cleanses a negative effect, it will do an additional burst of healing. The slight knockback on Suzu is also being removed. We'd like this ability to feel more pointed. We don't want players to feel like they have to hold it, and would like to reward them more for using it situationally. Alright, I'll be honest, removing the knockback on Suzu is like, why was it ever there in the first place? It's such a minor knockback and is so extremely situational in terms of actually doing anything with it that, sure, get rid of it. I don't think removing the knockback is going to change anything about it. Also, reducing how much it heals, again, doesn't seem like it's going to change that much, although it is interesting that there'll be a healing buff upon cleansing a negative effect, and I'm curious to see how much that healing actually ends up being. Is it intended to sort of just compensate the overall nerf to Suzu's general healing, or is it going to be something really intense like 50 health restored per debuff cleansed? I guess we'll have to wait and see. We are planning tweaks for several of our other support heroes, but the last one we'll go over here is a reduction in Mercy's damage boost. It won't be a lot. We'll be reducing it from 30% to 25%. At this value, we feel that the ability will still feel effective while giving us room to rein in certain damage spikes. We're aware that this is a contentious topic and are doing our best to be receptive to the various community opinions. Oh, it's always funny when you see Blizzard just outright acknowledge that they fear the Mercy community. The way they're approaching this announcement that Mercy's going to get a 5% damage boost nerf in the upcoming season is just, oh, it's funny. It's funny. You just gotta laugh at things like this sometimes, you know? There are a few other notable mentions. Sombra has a few small changes coming next season, but in season 7, she'll debut her larger rework, complete with a new ability. Ramatra and Doomfist's blocks will now reduce stuck damage, and we're making changes to Bastion's kit to help him feel more fluid and increase the potential of his tactical grenade. And that then wraps up the blog post regarding balance changes coming in Overwatch 2 Season 6. They didn't go too in depth with too many of the changes. I think there's going to be some interesting ones with Lifeweaver, and certainly with the whole Cassidy mini rework of sorts again, where he's getting his health buff back. Interesting changes, I think, across the board. I am curious to see them in practice, since a lot of the times just hearing changes like this on paper doesn't really convey a great idea of how they actually end up playing out. But with the new season being only a week away, we don't have that long to wait yet until we'll get to try it for ourselves, along with all the other exciting new content coming, like the new support hero, and of course Flashpoint and the story PvE missions. But on that note, let me know your thoughts on the balance changes discussed here today by dropping a comment down below. Are you excited to get to playtest any of these new changes in the new season, or do some of them got you a little worried? Either way, be sure to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, hit up that bell icon, and come join my Discord server to hang out and never miss any of my future Overwatch content. Special thanks to my YouTube channel members to help make these videos possible, and if you'd like to join them to earn some cool rewards, then just hit that join button down below. Otherwise, this is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.